Alright, today we are going to learn how to fill out the new Forestry CD Scantron. The first thing that needs to be noted is you need to be making sure you're using a number 2 pencil. No pens will work when we run these things through the Scantron. Alright, without further ado, when you first get your Scantron, you're going to need to write your name at the top right corner along with your school name. That is important when we go to put in registration. Then you will write it in here and also bubble in. Make sure to bubble in each letter. Don't circle. And that will suffice for our system. Make sure you do your first name and then your last name as it says on the Scantron. Alright, the first practicum we're going to look at is going to be tree ID. You'll get this sheet at the practicum event on the day of, and let's say you go to number 1 and it is going to be black walnut, which is number 42. You can write it in there. You'll get to keep this sheet, alright, but then you will need to make sure on the tree ID form that you put 42 in. You don't necessarily have to write them up here, but if there's any questions when we go to running the Scantrons as to what you meant, or if there's any errors, if you have it in written there, that helps make it more clear. But make sure you have to bubble in. Okay? Alright, let's look. Let's say number 2 is red alder, which is 1 on the word bank. Okay? Then you will write in 0, 1 and make sure to bubble in the 0 and the 1. Okay, there's going to be 20 questions, so you'll go down through here all the way to number 20. Okay, and that will be the tree ID portion of the Forestry CD. Okay, up next we're going to look at TSI, which is going to be over here in this top right hand section under the name. Okay, and then you'll get this practicum sheet. You'll get a management objective, all right, and you'll have to choose whether to harvest, leave, or deaden 20 trees. If number 1 you want to harvest, all right, that is going to be A, because A corresponds with the harvest on TSI. Then you will bubble in letter choice A. Okay. If number 2 you would like to deaden the tree, which is letter choice C, then you would put C, and you would make sure to bubble in letter choice C on the management and TSI section. Okay. Alright, so we're going to flip the Scantron over, and up next is timber cruising. Okay. You're going to have 10 trees where you're going to have to measure the DBH and the height of the tree, and then eventually determine the total volume. You get a little workspace here to determine volume, okay, that you would want to work there. You can also do it on your worksheet that you will get at the practicum. So let's look at number 1. Let's say you use your Biltmore stick and you measure the DBH as 12. Maybe you measure the number of logs as 2.5 16-foot logs. Then you would look on your table and you would have 12, and you would go over to 2.5, and the volume would be 52. Okay, so let's look at how you'd bubble that in. You would write 12 for the DBH on number 1, bubble in 1, 2, and then you would have 2.5 logs. Bubble in the 2, you'll notice there's a period there, and you'll put 5. Okay, if number 2 was 16 on the DBH, and let's say the number of logs was 3. Alright, so the DBH is 16, number of logs is 3, so that's a 161. Alright, so right here you would put 16 for the DBH, and you would put 3.0. Make sure again that you put in the 0, so you'll bubble in 16 on the DBH and 3.0 on the height and 16-foot logs. Okay, when you get all 10 of those, then you will total these up and get your total volume, and let's say it's 3,267 board feet, then you would bubble in 3,000. Alright, so at this point we have theoretically found our DBHs and our number of 16-foot logs on our chart and wrote our volumes in based on this table that you would be given at the practicum. Okay, so we determine our volume in this space here. Alright, you do all your calculations and whatnot, and then once you find the answer, you will bubble it in here. Okay, so you can see I've written it in, and then make sure to bubble in that 0 at the beginning, 3,267 board feet. So that's the timber cruising section. Okay, last but not least, we have the hand compass section. So let's look at that. Here is the practicum sheet that you'll be given. You can do your answers over here in this left hand column. So let's look and say we have on the first azimuth bearing, we read a 185 degrees, and we pace it off and we say that it is 75 feet. Okay, so we look down here on the back part of the Scantron to the compass section. Alright, so it was, the azimuth was 185 degrees. So I put it, make sure I'm writing it right here in the, where it says azimuth, 185. And then I go down here to the compass, or the distance section, excuse me, and I put 0.75 for 75 feet. Make sure you bubble in the zeros, and make sure you are doing it within this column right here for number 1. So, alright, let's look at another one. Okay, let's say on number 2 we have maybe 50 degrees as our bearing. Alright, and the distance is 112 feet. Okay, so up here we can see again we're going to have one where we have to bubble in the 0. Especially make sure to do that just so you stay in the right column. That way you don't get off any sections and miss bubble the Scantron. And make sure you write them in too, because sometimes that helps to clarify any questions that we might have if we go back and correct answers. Alright, and the distance on this would be 112 feet. So bubble in 1, 2. Okay, so that takes care of the compass practicum. Again, bubble clearly, don't circle the answers, and everything should be good. And that's the 4 parts of the area forestry CDE for the Georgia forestry CDE. Of course, the state will have another added part or two, just depending on what's thrown in that year.